Now, if you're in the US and Thanksgiving food isn't your cup of tea, my next guest can definitely point you in the direction of a good Chinese restaurant. David R. Chan is in a league of his own when it comes to Chinese food. He's a 72-year-old former tax lawyer and claims to have dined at nearly 8,000 Chinese restaurants across the United States. Each is archived in a spreadsheet that he has maintained for 4 decades, along with thousands of restaurant business cards and menus. And Mr. Chan joins me now from Los Angeles. Thank you so much for joining us today. I understand you didn't eat a lot of Chinese food as a child, so tell me why and how your food journey started.
When I was a kid, there were not a lot of Chinese here in Los Angeles or the United States because of the Chinese exclusion laws. Most Chinese my age back then were American-born and highly Americanized. And it wasn't until I went to college, there was the beginnings of the ethnic pride movement, and I was fascinated to learn that Chinese Americans had their own history in the United States. At the same time, the Chinese Exclusion Acts were being repealed, and you started to see the first migration of immigrants from China in decades, from Hong Kong, from Taiwan, and they brought an exciting new brand of Chinese food to the United States. So it was these two forces joining at the same time that sent me on the road to eating at a lot of Chinese restaurants.
So I guess you were somewhat searching for your own identity, but you've been doing this for 45 years. So why do you think people are interested in this now?
It's a case of, I think if somebody tried to talk about this 20, 30 years ago, it would just been a profile or crackpot. But you've seen in the last 10, 15 years, food has really become important in society and culture. And it's just that food is the end thing now. But the younger people now, they are just the millennials, they're just so into food. So I think it's just happened to be right time, right place for this story to come out.
I guess in your lifetime, you've gone through experiences of racism and so on. Do you think this interest in Chinese food, has that improved things?
Well, I mean, it has from my point of view. It gives me a platform to point out of all the injustices that have been done to Chinese Americans over the years and how that has influenced greatly the current state of Chinese food in the United States. From the Exclusion Acts, which prevented Chinese from migrating to the United States, to housing and employment discrimination, which kept them segregated. And today you still see, Chinese communities, I won't say segregated, but clustered rather than being spread out through the entire community.
That's a very interesting point. I do have to ask, you've trotted out 8,000 restaurants, I understand, in the United States. What's your favorite?
It's hard to say because that's over a period of years. And one thing about Chinese food is it keeps evolving, keeps getting better. So, on an absolute basis, it's got to be one of today's restaurants. I kind of like Dragon Bowl in San Francisco, even though I'm in LA and Los Angeles otherwise has the best Chinese food in the country. But then, you go back 30 years ago and there was a Chinese restaurant called ABC in Los Angeles, Chinatown, which for its day, I thought was head and shoulders better than anything around at that time.
David R. Chan, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, you can read more about his food journey on our website as well. So do check that out as well. Thank you so much for joining us on